Welcome on Texas Football. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Rod Babers and Jeff Howe. The State of the Program, our weekly episode, brought to you by our friend Adam Lowy over at the Lowy Law Firm. Got a lot of stuff going on the 40 acres, finishing up spring ball like they did a week and a half ago. Now they move into this next phase. New faces show up on campus June 1. We talked to Nick Townsend this week on Talking Ball on Monday night, guys. Those new players move in on June 1. That means that guys from the transfer portal like Jack Endries, Mason Shipley, Emmett Mosley, they're coming in on June 1 as well. So it's kind of this mix and mash time. Texas coaches on the road offering scholarships, etc. But something happened on Sunday. There's going to be many topics here. I want to talk about what Matthew Caldwell and his pledge, the Troy quarterback that Texas took out of the portal, means to Texas. I want to talk a little bit about what y'all see from that. I want to talk about the receiver group at Texas today. And one of the pieces I want to talk about there is, did Texas do enough, in y'all's opinion, in the portal? And then I want to hit on some bright spots that we've kind of identified coming out of spring. Let's start, Rod, I want to start with you. What's your general take on why Texas took Matthew Caldwell, the quarterback out of Troy, in the portal? He's only got 1 year left. He's going to come in and compete immediately with Trey Owens and KJ Lacey for that number 2 role at the University of Texas. Why did Texas take him, in your opinion?
Well, I think ultimately, Sark has done research, right? Historically, Texas has, since he's been here, used multiple different starting quarterbacks. Each year he's been at Texas. They've had to, trot out, Malik Murphy out there. They had, Hudson Card after Casey Thompson, of course, Arch Manning most recently. And if you go look at even further back, Texas, unfortunately, has had to utilize multiple quarterbacks. Going back all the way since 1998, I believe. It's only been 7 seasons since then where you've had a quarterback start and finish every game and every season. So history would tell you that there's a likelihood, I'm knocking on wood here, but a high likelihood that something, is going to happen to Arch at one point in the season, and you're going to have that second string quarterback have to go out there and win your game or two. And if that's the case, I love me some Trey Owens, but maybe Sark wants someone who's had some game experience in that situation, especially in SEC play. I think that's number one reason. So insurance policy, I think, would be number one reason. And I think ultimately Sark competition level. Sark has talked about it. He was talking on an interview most recently with Josh Pate, and he said, it's a healthy sign for this program when guys come to me essentially and say, Coach, you recruited over me. I got to go. I got to go somewhere else and go find an opportunity to play. You just brought in way too many good players. He understands he is stacking this roster at every position, and he's doing it at quarterback too. But I think when he maybe lacks some competition at a certain position during the obviously season to season, he may bring in reinforcement. I think that's what's going on too. I believe Trey Owens it will be your best option as a backup quarterback. I think he can win that job, but I think Sark wants him to prove it. He can go out there and win that job and leave no doubt. So I think those are a couple of reasons why they went after Matthew Caldwell. It was definitely a surprise to everybody involved. And I had heard from someone they were going after a quarterback, and I thought to myself, well, that doesn't make any sense, so I'm not even going to entertain that rumor. But then they signed Matthew Caldwell, and it just confirmed to me that they were looking. They were out there looking for a quarterback. The reasons, that only Sark truly knows that.
Jeff, what do you think? What do you make of it overall?
To me, this is not an indictment on the talent level Texas has in that room. I don't think it's an indictment on the talent level of the future of Trey Owens. I don't think it's an indictment on the talent level of the future of KJ Lacey. Bobby, we were out there at that one practice we got to see, and we've heard enough that both of these guys, they're different quarterbacks. They bring different stuff to the table, but both of them have a chance to be the guy at some point in their career. I think this is all about experience. As a Texas fan, to me, you've already lived the worst case scenario. We've already lived the worst case scenario. You go back to the 2009 season and, you lose your all-everything quarterback early in the national championship game, and you've got to put in a guy that has no experience. And, you think big picture, do you want to be in Gainesville or Athens or in the Cotton Bowl against OU or, heaven forbid, an SEC championship game or a playoff game, and something happens to Arch and, you've got to depend on Trey Owens or KJ Lacey with no experience to get you through that game? At least Matthew Caldwell has played consequential snaps at the FBS level at quarterback. Granted, it's in the Sun Belt, and you can judge Sun Belt competition however you want, but it's experience. And I'm with Rod. Look, if you've got the opportunity to add somebody that can bring something to your room that you don't have, in this case, I think it's experience and somebody who can push your two young quarterbacks, just keeping everybody on their toes, I'm all for it. And I don't know why anybody would be against it, but I don't think anybody should take it that it's a knock or a stance or anything against the talent level or the future of the two young guys. This is all about Sark looking at what is going to maximize the 2025 Texas football team. And it's him saying, we need an experienced backup quarterback. And also, Bobby, I think it says a lot about Matthew Caldwell knowing, look, if you're transferring out of a program, you think you want to have a chance to start, but you're going to Texas, you know you're behind Arch Manning, you know you're not going to be the starter. To get this kind of guy, it takes a guy with a special kind of makeup to understand I may never take a significant snap there. But to Rod's point, you've had way too many instances, and in every year under Sark, where the guy who started the year as the backup quarterback has had to start at least 2 ball games. So it's a guy coming in that knows what he's getting into, is willing to put in the work. And I think you still got 2 guys that this staff feels really good about as far as the future goes.
I think you nailed it a little bit there in that you said it's not an indictment on the current talent level on campus. I think that's what people need to take away. Some people are trying to position it that way.
Right.
I've heard some commentary. That's not what we're hearing from behind the scenes at all. It's not an indictment on those on the campus. And as part of that, I want to come back to Rod here in a second. But first, I want to say thank you to our sponsor, each and every state of the program each week, brought to you by our friend Adam Lowy over at the Lowy Law Firm. If you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind, ATV, 18-wheeler, you name it, and think you might be due some compensation, make sure you reach out to Adam and his group, LowyLawFirm.com. They'll give you a free, no strings attached consultation to see if you might be due compensation. Again, that's Adam Lowy over at the Lowy Law Firm, been helping injured Texans for 20 plus years. Adam not only supports on Texas football, but supports the University of Texas as well. You can see his name in law firm all over the Moody Arena there at the University of Texas. All right, Rod, I want to go into something a little bit more on Matthew Caldwell, because if it's not an indictment of the talent level currently on campus, it's talking and speaking to something different then. It's about a win now attitude for Texas on a year-to-year basis. Would you agree with that? I mean, like, this is a shore it up move almost. Make sure, leave no stone unturned. What do you think of that?
I do feel like I felt like that. Remember, they went after the Stanford edge rusher, was it Bailey? Was his name?
Yep, David Bailey. Yep.
And everybody, including myself, thought, And to Jeff's point, it's like, you're stacked at D. You might have the deepest edge room in the country. You're one of the deepest edge rooms in the country, and yet they were looking to add a difference maker. And Sark said that, right? He said, yeah, I know we got some holes on our roster in terms of numbers wise and looking at scholarship numbers, but what we really want to add are difference makers, guys who actually will come on and be impact players. So I think at that time I realized, okay, there's a different mentality here. There's an aggression and an urgency to talent acquisition now, and it makes me think that, I don't know, maybe they're looking at a window here. It could be the arch window, all right? It could just be the arch window. It could be a number of different things. The house settlement could have something to do with this. Like, we've heard the reports. Some of those reports have been disputed about $35 to $40 million roster. Been multiple reports thrown out there about that. The reason that I was inclined to somewhat agree with it, because I understand the aggression and the urgency Texas has right now. It seems like there's a window, and Texas is trying to go as all in as they can in this window. I said, maybe it is the arch window. I'm not sure. Maybe this is where Sark has truly stacked the talent, and he's been to the Final Four back-to-back years, and he figures, all right, looking at and Sark does a lot of, studying of recent history and history of college football, and it looks like this is usually when a team breaks through. Right? We saw it with Georgia. Took them a little while knocking on the door. They finally broke it down. Ohio State knocking on the door, finally broke it down. And I think Sark sees this as an opportunity for him. And maybe it's because there is no real power right now in college football. Georgia's weakened. Now, you got to beat Georgia. To beat a man, you got to beat the man. But Georgia looks vulnerable. All right. Do you really trust James Franklin in Penn State? Everybody thinks they're going to be good. You trust James Franklin in a big game, right? You know, Ohio State's they lost a lot. They're going to be bringing a lot back, but they also lost a ton. You know, right now there seems to be a bit of a vacuum, all right, that Texas can take advantage of in college football, where there is no, for sure, no-brainer top team, in my opinion. So I think there's a lot that's going into the mentality now where, guys, let's go all in while we can. And I think it will continue even next season. If not, they win it all. We'll see if things could change. But if they don't, I think it still could continue that they're trying to maximize this window.
Yeah, it's almost like, and I think you used this term in our pre meeting that we had on the show. Use a sense of urgency.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you said, and that getting a difference maker, getting the backup quarter. I mean, all of that plays into this idea that win now. You know that Texas is going to go through. In that vein, though, and I'll start with Jeff here. In that vein, was Texas aggressive enough for you in the transfer portal at wide receiver? I mean that because look, they took three last year: Isaiah Bond, Matthew Golden, and Silas Bolden. This year they kind of they take the Stanford wide receiver Emmett Mosley, but otherwise stand pat with Ryan Wingo, DeAndre Moore, and we're hearing Parker Livingston. Were they aggressive enough at wide receiver?
I think they were smart. Now, were they aggressive enough? I wouldn't quite say yes, Bobby. I'm about like 85% there to saying they were aggressive enough. I would have liked to see them go get a guy that could be a bona fide return guy. Now, that guy could have been a running back. He could have been a slot receiver. He could have just been a gadget guy on offense, but I would have liked to have seen them go get a return guy, because you're going to lose a big chunk of what you had in the return game not having Silas Bolden. And also, we didn't see a ton of kickoffs last year, and most of the big returns Matthew Golden had were brought back because of penalties. But you lost arguably the best kick returner and the best punt returner in the country. You can make that argument. So I would have liked to have seen them shore that up. But I like the move of Emmett Mosley, because I think the guys you have in that room now do a better job of being able to run the kind of route tree that's going to benefit Arch Manning. I think you've got more bigger bodied guys. I think you've got guys that are going to be better in contested catch situations. I think when you look at the throws that Arch is going to be able to make that you haven't necessarily had with Quinn, you know, your deeper comebacks, your deeper out routes, your deeper in breaking routes, stuff that's going to take a lot of time. The RPO is always going to be a part of Sark's offense. That's not going away, but it's not going to be as glance, slant, bubble screen heavy, intensive as it was. You're going to have more of those vertical throws because that plays to Arch's strength. I think you've got the kind of receivers now that can make those catches in traffic, the bigger body guys that can hold up a little bit better. So, did they do a good job of, and you know, I think this goes back to the window, and I've been looking at it, Rod, you just said something there, and I've been thinking about this for the last little bit. I've been looking at this with you've got a 2-year window with Arch. Mm-hmm. I think Stark just looks at this. He's got 1-year windows. Like, what do I need to do to maximize the team to get the most out of this team right now? Because with the nature of the NFL draft and the transfer portal, I don't know that as a head coach, you can afford to look more than a year down the road. So again, other than a return guy, I like what they've got at receiver. And I think, Bobby, this says a lot about what they think of the young talent they've got on campus. Not just Livingstone, but they got a good look at Khalil Lockett, at Jamie French. Dalen McCutcheon, we heard, had a really good spring. Michael Terry's still figuring the position out, but I think the fact that they didn't go get more, I think that speaks more to the talent that Chris Jackson and Sark feel they've got in that room with the young guys.
What do you think, Rod? Do you think they did enough with Emmett Mosley?
Now, if you're talking about just the receiving, receiving game overall, or we talking about the receiving core overall, do we include Jack injuries, or are we talking about just wide receiver?
Well, no, you're just wide outs, because I think injuries was definitely a key role. But I'm talking about more of those guys on the outside. Yeah.
I think ultimately Sark has a lot of confidence in his system's ability to maximize and weaponize receivers now. And I think now he's going through different iterations with his system, and he believes that, that he always says this, right, that the ball will find certain guys in his system. And then the other guys, he says he's kind of waits for like the first quarter of the season, and then he figured, oh, this guy naturally he's more compatible with the offense, with the passing game. The quarterback may have a better chemistry with this guy, whatever it is. And then he says after that he's got a scheme open other guys. Remember it happened to DeAndre Moore. Remember DeAndre Moore the first half of last season? He wouldn't get. I mean, I think he had like some games like 0 targets, and coach was like, he's playing really well. We're like, really well, and he's not making any impact. But Sark was like, he's really, really well. And then Sark started scheming DeAndre Moore open. Ryan Wingo, ball kind of found him naturally. I think Golden kind of found him naturally. So I think Sark trusts his ability and his preferences, number one, in wide receivers, and his system's ability to maximize those wideouts. So, yeah, usually considering the recent history where Texas brought in, bring in A.D. Mitchell, and he brought in Matthew Golden and Silas Bowden and Isaiah Bond. I think this year just bring in Emmett Mosley, who, by the way, has multiple years of eligibility left. And I think that's part, to me, that's why I'm looking at it is more than just a 1-year window. There's a sense of urgency, but how many guys they bring in the transfer portal now that have multiple years of eligibility? Ain't just bringing in that one guy so he can. I got
Rod Watson, Levon Johnson.
Right? They're looking at the window expanded just a little bit. And so I think looking at wide receiver, ultimately, I think he trusts that some of these guys have been with Arch Manning and developed with him a little chemistry. Right. I think he likes that idea. And like I said, I think he's confident that, man, if I get good wideouts, my system, they'll be prolific. I mean, Texas, I believe Ohio State in the last 2 years, Ohio State's the only team that's had more wide receivers drafted than Texas, right? Texas had back-to-back years with wide receivers drafted, and it's going to continue. Texas right now, to me, I think Sark has almost done a great job totally overhauling the culture of wide receiver at Texas. We've never seen anything like this type of production at the wide receiver position year after year. And now with different guys, usually we got that one big, it's like, oh yeah, Roy Williams. Of course, it was Roy freaking Williams, right? He's a beast. He's all-time great. And you get, another really productive wide receiver. But this is more than just one guy. Sark is now there's a template in place. Sark is showing that no matter who comes in here, if you come in here with the right mindset and you get the right skill set in this system, you will thrive. And the NFL notices too.
So my take on this is, first of all, I agree with Jeff. I don't know that they addressed kick and punt return. So I want to tie it into this. Okay. Now, who is your second team slot right now? It's Dalen McCutcheon.
Mm-hmm.
So if there is one guy, what if DeAndre Moore, who was out this spring with a foot injury? I think they've got guys on the outside. I think Ryan Wingo, Emmett Mosley, Parker Livingstone. I think they've got the outside receiver thing done. I think it's the slot that I'm most concerned about from a depth perspective. And that slot receiver could have also been a potential kicker, punt returner, right?
Yeah.
So maybe they didn't do quite enough. Maybe that guy wasn't there for them, though, in all honesty. I mean, they weren't going to go take somebody that they weren't going to go, why would you go spend DeAndre Moore? I just saw a mock draft that had him going in the first round next year.
Ty McShay.
I mean, and my point is, so you're not going to go out and get necessarily better than that. So you got to rely on a young freshman maybe to be that backup at a pretty key role in Sark's offense, or he'll go 12 personnel and play 2 outside receivers. I mean, that's his that'll be his answer, I think, if that happens. One thing I would say, though, as we talk about this, I think people underrate Emmett Mosley the fifth in general. Okay, he's okay. 48 catches, true freshman at Stanford, bad team, played on a bad team.
Yeah.
Bad quarterback, not a very good quarterback. Only other real target on that team, Alec Onemior, high round draft pick out of Stanford. But here's what I would say to you about Emmett Mosley. Strong hands, strong route runner, good athlete. He had 48 catches. Those 48 catches, guys, were in 9 games. It wasn't a 12-game season. 9 games, 40. That's more than 5 catches a game. He outperformed Onemior late in the season, the last 4 games. And so I think that people underrate Emmett Mosley a little bit. Even though, is he going to be an A.D. Mitchell, a second-round draft pick? I don't know. But my point is, I think some people may think that I don't, just because he didn't come from a great program and have these stats prior to these unbelievable stats. I think he's a pretty solid player. All right, bright spots coming out of spring. That was the last thing we were going to get to today in the state of the program. I was talking to Jerry Hamilton this morning about on Coffee and Football, and one of the things I brought up as a bright spot to me is the amount of capable players they have in the secondary right now. But how are they going to put it all together is a fair question, right? But is that just the answer? Is the bright spot of Texas football right now talent overall? Not just at DB, but it could be pass rush. It could be offensive line when you lose 4 guys and yet you don't feel like your offensive line is going to be much off from a year prior, right? We talked about the receiver room just now. Linebacker. Is talent level overall the bright spot of Texas football? Is that a fair question, Jeff?
Yeah, I go back to this term that Rod and I have talked about for over a decade now. You look at the teams that year in and year out compete for the national championship. They've got talented depth. Now, quarterback can be a crapshoot in a given year. Like, we know just the nature of that position in the portal, there's a high turnover rate. But, Ohio State has had talented depth. Georgia has had talented depth. Alabama over the years under Nick Saban. Just go on down the list. To your point, Bobby, think about any other year. If you'd have said, hey, you're going to be on the road in College Station in a game that you've got to win to get to a conference championship game, you're going to lose your All-American left tackle 6 plays into the game. You'd have thought that's the end of the world. And with Trevor Gooseby coming in to replace Kelvin Banks, none of us were the wiser. Like, you still ran for whatever it was, 200 and something yards that night. I mean, Trey Weiser had a career night that night. So I think you've got it on the offensive line. You've gone to the portal to make sure you've got it on the interior defensive line. We talked about the pass rush with this team, the weapons in the secondary, the youth at wide receiver. You even got it at running back. I mean, you look at that running back position, as good as it is, we still haven't seen Christian Clark back 100% yet, fully recovered from that Achilles injury. You're going to get CJ Baxter back at some point. And I think with Matthew Caldwell coming in now to give you some experience at quarterback, yeah, I think Texas, if you thought this was a fluke or that Sark was doing this with smoke and mirrors, you're kidding yourself, because Texas has as much talented depth up and down the roster as anybody in the country.
What do you think? What do you think, Rod?
Well, I totally agree. I mean, it's an arms race, right? At this point, I mean, it's pretty obvious. I still remember the Jim Nagy tweet he put out there before he became the GM of Oklahoma football, when he was working with the Senior Bowl, and he put out the tweet that since 2020, the team that wins the national title in college football has also had the most players drafted. LSU, I think it was Bama.
Ohio State now. That makes sense too.
Yeah, it was LSU, then Bama, Georgia, back-to-back years, right? Michigan, and then Ohio State. That's literally how it's broken down. That is not a coincidence at all. And for Texas the last 2 years to have the most players actually drafted in all of college football the last 2 years. And like Jeff says, it's interesting, you talk about Trevor Gooseby. I was talking to T. Hills, he blew my mind saying, oh, yeah, I think they're going to be more athletic at tackle after Kelvin Banks and Cameron Williams. I'm like, what? Say that again? I made it repeat itself. And I was like, you serious? And he's like, yeah, more athletic. I said they'd be better, but they'll be more athletic. Kind of shows you the way they're stacking the roster. You lose a third starting quarterback, and everybody's like, we upgraded that quarterback. It's like, what? That guy led you to the Final Four back-to-back years. Yeah, but we're better now at QB than we were. It's like, whoa. And I think you're starting to see, some of those themes like that, right? You lose a lot of guys in the secondary. You lost a Thorpe Award winner. You lost Andrew McCool, one of the best safeties in the country. And yeah, there are a lot of people that believe this defense can still be a top 10, top 5 defense. We even broke it down, right? It's the first time you got preseason guys who have been awarded All-American honors, all right, coming back at every level of the defense. On the D-line, linebacker, and in the secondary. First time that we can all, I think, Jeff, you said was since Rob B was on campus.
Yeah.
Like 2002, 01 since that happened, right? It's been a long time since Texas has been stockpiling this kind of talent. So I totally agree. It's just this is why I think they looked at that stat from Jim Nagy too and said, guys, it ain't a coincidence. It's happening year after year. Team that wins the national title has the most players drafted. And I don't know if it's the chicken or the egg, but Texas got to figure out how to have the most players drafted next season. If they do, they will be winning a national title. That's it. That's the formula. It ain't complicated. It's a simple formula. Most talent, win most games. That's it.
I think overall talent is the brightest spot.
Yeah.
I would say this. It's twofold to me though. It's depth of talent and difference makers. The Anthony Hills, the Colin Simmons, possibly an Arch Manning, possibly a Trevor Gooseby, possibly a Ryan Wingo, where those difference maker types, like it can't just be, oh, we had 10 guys or 13 guys drafted and none of them were first rounders.
Yes, agreed. Yeah, no doubt.
Got to be some true difference makers in that category. So I agree with y'all, though. All right, let's say thanks one last time to our friend Adam Lowy over at the Lowy Law Firm. If you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind, all you need to do is reach out to loweylawfirm.com. That's loweylawfirm.com, and they'll give you a free, no strings attached consultation that allows you to understand whether or not they believe, and get you a second opinion here, or whether or not they believe you might be due compensation. Again, loweylawfirm.com. Thank you very much, Adam, for your ongoing sponsorship on Texas football. Guys, Longhorn football is in this recruiting stage right now. We got guys out on the road. Jerry's in Florida and Georgia today. CJ's on the road watching players, et cetera. I think that, it's kind of a wait and see a little bit about what comes next for Texas football, whether they're going to go to the portal and maybe add someone here or there at a position like offensive line, subsequent to Nick Brooks running with the law or with Malik Agbo transferring. A lot of stuff going on. But, behind the scenes, Rod, we had heard that this is that time frame where guys are finishing school, right? And then that June 1 time frame. What goes on if you're a player right now?
Ooh.
And so what I'm asking you really, and this, you can be brief with this, there's that 3-week window essentially. Is this a rest period? Rest isn't the right word, but is this a calm before the storm period? Out of spring break, you get 3 weeks out of finals to get ready. What goes on right now if you're one of those players?
I think you do want to have a kind of recharge, if you will, right? Because you've been going. Texas season was really long, and spring, of course. So I do think there's a time to recharge, and it all depends on what you're going through. Some guys may have injuries that they're dealing with, and you have maybe some family obligations. This is the time to, I think, recharge and kind of reset.
Is it time to get your mind right?
It's kind of reset your priorities, all that kind of stuff for the upcoming season. So there is, I would say, less emphasis on like hardcore training at this time. You're a world-class athlete. You're always staying in shape. Like, you never stop working out. I remember when I was playing, I don't think I ever had a day where I didn't work out. Like, even when I had a down day, I'd go run a couple of miles, do some. That's just, you're an athlete. You know what I mean? That's how world-class athletes work. So the guys are always working out. You have to worry about that. But in terms of the intensity of it, the focus of it, it may not be as focused, as specific, and it may not be as intense right now, because this is a time, I think, to reset, recharge. The guys, they need it, man. They need it, because it's going to get for Texas anyway. I guarantee you, starting off with Ohio State, man, I don't know if training camp will ever start as intense as it's going to start for Texas, because I just can't remember they had a game 1 of this magnitude when Texas is this good with this much pressure with a Manning and all that kind of stuff. It's just a lot, and I think the guys are going to have to be ready sooner, period.
Good stuff. All right, that's going to do it for today's State of the Program. Thank you very much, Rod Babers. Thank you, Jeff Howe, and thank you to our producer, Matt Hutchison, as well as our sponsor, Adam Lowy, over at the Lowy Law Firm. Guys, y'all have a good one. We'll see you again later tonight on the live stream. Y'all take care now. Everybody have a good one. Hook 'em horns.
Hook 'em.